This episode is brought to you by Vinyl Me Please, a vinyl record of the month club where every month they feature one album that is essential to every vinyl connoisseur's collection and send it to thousands of members worldwide. Each box includes special edition vinyl you won't find anywhere else. And this month's record of the month is Miles Davis's unheralded release, Sorcerer, which features orchid purple vinyl, 8-page liner note booklet, and 12 by 12 original art print. So upgrade your life. Hit up joinvmp.com/extraordinary and get you some of this dope ass vinyl.
Yo, are you listening to us right now on TuneIn? If not, you're living your life wrong, because every new episode of ours is available a week early exclusively on TuneIn. If you're listening on anything else, whether it's iTunes, SoundCloud, or whatever, you're waiting for new episodes when you don't have to. So if you want to skip the line and get the jump on every new episode, download the TuneIn app, not now, but right now, so you can receive your beautiful black ass blessing before everybody else. And for more info on all things extraordinary, hit up tunein.com/extraordinary Negroes.
Have yourself an extraordinary Christmas. May your heart be light. From now on, your troubles will be out of sight. Have yourself an extraordinary Christmas. From Alex and Jay. From now on, your troubles will be miles away. And have yourself an extraordinary Christmas day.
And welcome to the latest edition of the Extraordinary Negroes. It is your boy, Jay Connor.
And I'm Alex Hardy.
And we are back in this bitch. Got over these Thanksgiving food comas and whatnot. What you been up to, man?
Woo, yeah, just overeating, as if it's a religion. Representing for, scooping up all the leftovers. I needed a break from New York, so I went back to recuperate with the family and love with my mom and help around the house and just be at home and do nothing for a couple of days with the family and recharge for a bit.
Yeah, that's important.
Yeah, man. New York has been kicking my ass, so I needed to take a break and, be around my loud ass sister, my grandma, and went up to see my cousins finally. And yeah, writing, got a couple of assignments that I'm working on this week. I'll be writing about reflecting on my time in Panama for this breakfast website that should be coming out soon. And yeah, just trying to keep it busy. Just had an event for Get Some Joy Wine and Words in partnership with WeWork. And that was a pretty good turnout. Yeah, looking forward to the next.
Yo, WeWork, I need you to stop kicking niggas out at 8:30. Y'all are bugging with that shit. Y'all are bugging with that shit. I'm not even gonna go into it, but shout out to them for holding you down for your event. Outside of writing my ass off lately, I don't know what the hell I ate. I don't know what the hell I did. I think I had an allergic reaction to something, but I got like bumps, like all over my body, like a rash. I look like the damn Braille alphabet. If I ran into Stevie Wonder, he might try to read my arms. I think it was something I ate on Thanksgiving. I don't know what the fuck is going on, but
Are you allergic to anything?
Not that I know of. Whack niggas and bad breath, as far as I know.
Casserole in the building.
But I ate something. It's fucked my skin up. I think I might have to go to like urgent care or something today. I've been trying to push that shit off because it's been like 4 days, dog. I look like
Oh no! See, don't be one of those people, man. Go get that shit taken care of.
I look like an avocado right now. But outside of that, shout out to LA Trade Tech for inviting me to come up there and speak to all those beautiful college students about the beauty of Black excellence and building Black wealth and whatever else. And hopped on a few podcast interviews. I'm not at liberty to disclose the names of them because I don't know if they're coming out after the holidays, or some people are way more structured than we are. So they might have that shit like 3 months recorded, like 3 months out. So I don't want to, whatever. And I had somebody email me with a dope ass, a listener of our show, email me with a dope ass business opportunity. So shout out to them. But yeah, just staying Black and busy. But speaking of our listeners, you like that transition? Hey. Speaking of our transitioners, our listeners,
See?
We want to take some time to show some love to y'all who have been hitting us with reviews. The first one I'll read is from Web Rats. I said that's because it has two S's.
Yeah.
Web Rats. They said, great content, great editing, amazing guests. Jay and Alex have created a space where you spend part of your week laughing and learning. This podcast is a part of my self-care regimen. That's what's up. That's what I like to hear. I like to hear people that are not only focusing on their self-care, but that they've incorporated our podcast into it. That's dope shit.
Shout out to you, Rats. Another one from Yotek. Yotek says, I love the focus on mental health for us all. Very educational and entertaining too. And thank you to you, Yotek. It definitely is important to us to bring the informative also with the other fuckery. So thank you for listening.
Yeah, we definitely, I mean, like we've always said from day one, we strive on combining. There's no reason why you can't be informative and entertaining. You know what I'm saying? Like you can definitely do both. And that's definitely something that we strive to do on here. So
can be dry.
Yeah, just don't be dry and boring. Just don't do that. But definitely thank y'all for showing us love. And, you know, we love to hear from you. We love to get these reviews. So please slide over to iTunes. And anytime you want to drop us one, we'll definitely read it on the show. But shall we get to the get down?
Let's get it.
All right. First order of business. Last week, in a series of interviews with Rolling Stone and Poland's Nuance, cultural appropriator extraordinaire Post Malone came out of his grungy, musty-ass mouth to not only belittle hip-hop as superficial, but to claim he's a victim of reverse racism.
Now, Post Malone is the same guy who had to apologize for an old Vine video in which he used the N-word. Rolling Stone also cites his 2015 Breakfast Club interview where a guy named Charlemagne the God asked him, what is he doing for the Black Lives Matter movement? Can we hear that? What are you doing for the Black Lives Matter movement? I guess what I can do to help Black Lives Matter is I to keep making music. You know what I mean? I don't know. I don't know.
And to quote the human tumbleweed himself, if you're looking for lyrics, if you're looking to cry, if you're looking to think about life, do not listen to hip hop.
See, the thing with Post Malone, which I find ironic, is that when he told Rolling Stone, if you're looking for lyrics, if you're looking to cry, if you're looking to think about life, don't listen to hip hop, he's describing himself. Okay, he should have said, if you're looking for lyrics, if you're looking to cry, if you're looking to think about life, don't listen to Post Malone.
So, Mr. Hardy, what in the gentrified hell is wrong with this dude?
We'll probably have another. First of all, I can just say that I saw someone say that they did not know who Post Malone was prior to this brouhaha, and I too am one of those people who did not know who this dust bucket was until now. But it appears we have another case of someone familiar in the culture, a culture tourist, who is just lost his rabbit ass mind and is not in tune with, you know, what hip hop actually represents, who appears to be benefiting from his place in hip hop as a dust bucket white man, but apparently not in tune with any aspects of the culture and the realities that relate to the real people who consume the music or that live the culture that he purports to represent. So I definitely don't think his opinion is one to be taken seriously on this matter. It's clear that the way hip hop can be transformative in people's lives and the way it tells stories often untold. So again, fuck this raggedy dust bucket ass white man and garbage can he wrote in on.
Man, if this Monchichi looking ass motherfucker don't go on somewhere with this goofy ass shit,
shut the fuck up.
What annoys me most about this dumbass statement that he made is that generally the rules of the house are pretty clear, right? If you're invited over for dinner, you're not allowed to speak on family business. That just is what it is. So Post Malone conveniently forgets that, like you said, he's a tourist. He's a guest in this rap shit. So it's like, who are you to speak on some shit that you're not really, you this isn't even who you are, fam. This ain't your culture. You know what I'm saying? And I think that one of the things that irritates me the most is that people that are outsiders that have all these opinions based solely upon what they see on MTV or they see on VH1 or they hear on the radio and don't really ingratiate themselves with the culture and consume the content, they form these opinions. So for him to be one of the most popular acts within, like I said, I can't name one song of his. Don't ask us to either, because we're going to be out here bad. But for him to be one of the, like, you know, the biggest, most popular artists of this genre right now, and for him to reinforce that stereotype is fucked up, especially when he's one of the main purveyors of this trend to begin with. You know what I'm saying? That's kind of like Roger Goodell saying, yo, the NFL is fucked up right now, but you're the commissioner. It's like you're part of the problem, bro. If you feel like this is what hip hop represents and you feel like it's, you know, a negative thing and something that needs to be rectified, be a part of the change, be a part of the solution. Don't sit there and say some crazy shit, make some bullshit ass music, and then be like, yeah, this is just like, nah, fuck out of here, man. I'm not with that shit.
Shut the fuck up.
You saw what we did with Iggy. Don't fuck around and get kicked out this shit too.
Reverse racism, though. Ever looking for a chance to be a victim, like that bullshit. That's how you know you don't belong.
Yeah, it's just I could say so much about the reverse racism thing, but it's early and I'm trying to enjoy the rest of my day. But yeah, he can kick rocks with that bullshit.
Get the whole fuck out of here. Like, damn everybody's lived experiences and, you know, say that everything. Okay.
Anyway,
okay.
Like I said, we're going to let that go because we could talk about an hour on that alone. Also this week, as Malia Obama attempts to live her best life as an unruly Harvard freshman, double agents in her inner circle keep leaking videos of her regular human-ass behavior online. From blowing smoke rings to sucking face with pasty tailgaters, you would think after spending the last 8 years of her life with paparazzi jumping out of her medicine cabinet that her friends would be a little bit more respectful of her privacy. So let's talk about it. Why won't Malia's raggedy-ass friends let her live?
They don't have her best interest at heart. I think that if she was around, like people kept suggesting, she needs some black friends. And I don't know if that's available to her and where she's at school. But I just think that as someone, like you said, who's been in the White House for 8 years, living that, trying to walk that perfect line and not disappoint anyone and not disappoint the ancestors or make their parents upset or look bad out here. Like, you damn right, I'm going to live my life. Even if I didn't have to go through that, I'm going to live my life and wild out a little bit and just do teenager ass shit and get drunk and do whatever the fuck teenagers do at school in their first semester. So she should be out. She should be able to do what she needs to do, make mistakes, fuck up, learn, grow, just like everybody else without these fucking Nazis out here infiltrating her circle, putting her on blast to the public. It's just corny. It's just like how is she expected to have a normal college experience when you have her every move documented and sent to, you know, the tabloids or sent to these publications. I just think they all need to go.
You know what? One of the things that used to always bother me about when Michael Jackson was still with us, the Thriller maker was still with us, was that, like, I used to always think, like, what it must be like to be him, to be in that situation in which no matter what you do, the man can't take a shit in a bathroom, in a public bathroom, without paparazzi running in there afterwards and sticking their cameras in the toilet bowl. You know what I mean? So it's like, I can't imagine what it must be like to have that kind of scrutiny with every single thing you do and every step you take. So keeping that in mind, it's just like, you would think that knowing that she's constantly under the scrutiny of, you know, conservatives and even liberal people and everyone else trying to, you know, find out and degrade her and defile, you know, what it is that she's trying to do, you would think, if anything, her friends would be the one source of refuge that she would have that would protect her. But it's like, the leaked videos that we see are always people that would have to be like in her inner circle.
Really close.
You know what I'm saying? It's like when I see the video of her blowing smoke rings, I'm thinking, yo, she knows exactly who the person is that put that clip out. You know what I'm saying? Because that's not, if you look at the angle, if you look at, like, you know what I mean? And it's just like, why are her friends doing this shit? Like, you guys know it's going to be on the news. You got to move differently, man. And that's part of the reason why I'm glad when I was out here bad that there wasn't no social media, you know, in a past life, because it's like, but I mean, even in those moments, I don't remember my friends pulling out cameras and shoving them in my face and being like, look at what Jay's doing. Like, they held me down. They were like, yo, you wildin', and we're going to clown you about this forever, but we're not going to take pictures. We're not going to document this shit because you never know where that stuff ends up.
Crazy.
And it's just like, knowing this person is 44's daughter and knowing that, you know, her friends are garbage, man. Her friends are trash. Yo.
Yeah. If this is the thing that keeps happening, it's clear that, like, you got a fucking mole in your crew who was not out here to have you, who was out here trying to make you look bad. And I don't know if they need to give her that good old black parent pep talk or something, but she gotta
changes need to be made.
Yeah, it's time.
Yeah. So Patreon. So why is Patreon important to an independent entity such as ourselves?
Patreon is the gift that lets us keep on giving. Patreon is a tool for you, our wonderful well moisturized, well fed, and hydrated listener to help us continue to provide this magic that you're listening to, this brand new flavor in your ear, and to keep our website up and with our contributors and our writing and our content, helps keep the lights on and, you know, keep the files online and keep the party going. So Patreon is just a way for you to support this wholly independent endeavor, not backed by any corporations or public entities, to help these two humble Black children be great out here in this hateful ass coleslaw loving world. So
that's real.
Very important to our enterprise, and we thank you all who have continued your support of us, and we hope that you continue to do so.
That's real. And specifically, I want to give a shout out to Miss Tony Shaw for her pledge. She real for that. You know what I mean? She's our newest pledge. And yeah, just, you know, as y'all continue to hold us down, we'll continue to put this show out, because these expenses are no fucking joke when it comes to this show. Just so y'all know. Our last episode, what did you hear about it?
Well, actually, the first thing I heard about the Grapevine episode was that it made someone want to go out and put their own message out there. Like, I have a friend who there's a million blogs, there's a million websites, and just hearing Ashley talk about just like putting in the work herself independently without that greater investment from like a larger entity or funding her own episodes, producing her own content herself, like before anyone else came on board. It's inspiring to hear out here. Like, there's a lot of us out here trying to be great, and, you know, hearing the way she's been able to bring people, you know, they talked about, I think Jay mentioned like somebody who wore like a Make America Great Again hat, but just bringing like dissenting opinions, just all different types of shit under one roof. It's inspiring. So I heard great things from the people out here trying to continue to see Ashley do great out here, and hopefully looking to do great things publicly themselves.
Anytime anybody creates their own, because I mean, it's just so easy to find somebody that's doing something that's popping, jump on, you know, kind of gain momentum and a trajectory off that, and then branch off and do your own thing. Anytime I see somebody that builds something of their own from the ground up and like invests their own money and seeks out their own relationships and just really like, you know, does their own social media and everything else that comes from being a business entity, I definitely want to, you know, high five them and Harlem Shake for them. But what Ashley's been able to create has just been, you know, amazing. And, you know, in the feedback that I heard from it, people were just astonished by, you know, what it was that she built and the quality level of it, and, you know, the impact that it's having on, you know, the community, the Black community, and just how she just building and moving, and just, you know, everything is just top notch and just really inspiring. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And that was just really the word that I kept hearing. Just like, she's so inspiring. She's so inspiring. So also definitely.
Yeah, you made a good point.
Oh, go ahead.
That like one person felt like, she said, watching those episodes and seeing and following, you know, these past few months on following the Grapevine, it looked like she has a huge team behind her, and how she kept saying like, it's really just, you know, it's not a huge production squad. It's not like huge backing. It's really just, you know, her and her people out here trying to, you know, get this thing popping. So that seeing people make great things that go far and that inspire and reach a lot of people with very limited resources is always inspiring to see.
Yeah, absolutely. I love to see people out here getting it. And I was definitely inspired by, you know, her grind and everything. And you might see one of us, more likely Alex before me, since he lives out there, on one of the future episodes. So definitely keep an eye out on that. But who we got on this episode?
On today's episode, we will be joined by Mr. Ranier Maningding, the editor of Next Shark, a speaker who you all have seen, and of course the voice behind Love Life of an Asian Guy, which really explores race, inequality, politics, pop culture, and other instances of shitbaggery that the world needs to know about. So we're going to have a really good interview with Ranier and talk about some dope things and how he's been able to make his presence be known and be a voice for Asian Americans out here.
Word. And before we get to that, though, let's get to these shrimp and grits.
It's the questions. It's the questions, boy. It's the questions. It's the questions. Come on, the questions. It's the questions, boy. It's the questions. It's the questions. Yeah, it's the questions. It's the questions.
All right. Tanya asks, your Thanksgiving dinner draft was hilarious, but I can't decide who won. So in 10 words or less, why do you feel you had the best draft? You know we're not going to stick to 10 words, but we're going to try.
Damn. Let's see. I didn't have dry stuffing. And that's probably why I won. I think I had the most well-rounded situation here. I had the meat, had your starches and your sides and your sweet. Like, I feel like I kept it together. So not 10 words, but that's why I feel like I won. And also the people seem to agree, if I might add.
If we're taking the popular vote out the equation, I was not somebody who fucked off 3 draft picks on Hennessy, chitlins, and hot sauce, 2 of which are going to be readily available anyway. So I don't even know why the hell he wasted his picks on those. I'm also not somebody who picked like 4 different damn holidays to pick food from, whether it was Cinco de Mayo, whether it was Easter Sunday, whether it was a damn 4th of July barbecue. I kept it on track. I stayed within the scope of Thanksgiving.
You're being very nationalist right now. That's okay.
Wait a minute. I'm definitely sounding like peak American. But regardless of the fact, I don't know nobody that eats ribs on Thanksgiving, but I'm going to leave that alone. But like I said, I stuck on topic. Where I fucked up, I will admit that I should have taken collard greens second. But let me explain myself for a second, Tanya, because I wasn't in my right mind. I was trying to draft for assets as opposed to food that I actually wanted, because I thought that turkey would be more valuable as a trade asset than collard greens. However, as soon as I drafted turkey, both these niggas was like, what are you doing? And I immediately realized I fucked up and I should have just went for collard greens. So that's why I think that I should have won. Damn it. I'll believe it at that.
I only say that Law got the advantage as the guest because he got to choose mac and cheese before I did, and everything else was kind of adjusting to such a loss. And I might add also that as my first football sports thing as an adult on purpose, I think I did fairly well in this endeavor. So I look forward. Actually, we were asked. Someone said, "Are we doing a Christmas dinner draft?" So we'll get back to you on that.
If we do a Christmas dinner draft, we'll definitely have to like write out all the foods. That way we all have an idea of what's available.
That's scary.
So thank you, Tanya, for your question.
All right. An anonymous asked, oh gosh, word on the street is that Janet Jackson, St. Amina Joe from Gary, Indiana, and Jermaine Dupri want that old thing back.
That's right. Let me tell it.
So should Janet take him back?
You know what? I would feel fucked up if I answered this question before Alex. So I'll definitely let Alex go first.
So here's the thing. It's a dark time. That was a dark time in Janet fandom. We typically don't speak his name, and for many reasons. But due to the circumstances, I've been forced to read this man's name. I will say, regardless of the goblin nature of the obvious goblin nature of things, he appeared to have treated her well, or at least publicly. There seemed to be, she seemed to be happy during that time. She wore all types of tacky, ridiculous things for him, and she, they did cornball videos together that people typically do when they're deeply in love. But I don't know about how it ended and all that shit. I personally don't want to see this just Janet Jackson with him, but it's not my life, and I want to say he must have the hammer. I mean, he must. Unfortunately, it's a disgusting reality to consider, but if it's gonna make her happy after leaving that Rico Suave man, okay.
Well, I mean, this is the thing, though. Word on the street, he alluded to the fact that he cheated on her, and that's why it ended. So I'm speaking strictly from what I've been told based upon what he said. And I remember him saying something about this on the Drink Champs podcast. So that's the only reason why it's kind of fresh in my mind. But that being said, I mean, can the nigga give her a hit? That's really what it comes down to. Because let's keep it a buck. Janet ain't had a hit in a minute. So if he can give her a hit record, I'm here for it. You know what I'm saying? To get that old thing back, get her in the studio. I love Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis, but when's the last hit Janet's had? Let's keep it a buck. Although I guess in this day and age, a hit is difficult to quantify.
Yeah, I mean,
but it's still a valid question.
I don't think that he is the one to do that. I don't like the music that they produced together. Most of it, I don't think it was that great. I mean, there are a couple, but overall, I just no, it wasn't. No,
it wasn't Janet.
No, it wasn't. She wasn't clocked in for that shit. And him trying to put the little scrapings of Mariah's and his little Lanta nonsense together, it just didn't work for me. I hope it's just a nasty, evil rumor from the pits of hell. That's what I hope it is.
Wait, did he produce Feedback?
No, Rodney Jerkins did.
Oh, I was like, whoa.
No.
Don't fuck with Rodney no more either. Shit, if that's the case. Go ahead, though.
No. Yeah, he did like that stuff for Tyler. I'm not even gonna go down that path. But I hope it's Alive from Hell, created by an evil, hateful Iggy Azalea fan who's miserable and getting evicted from their mother's couch, who's just lashing out at the world. I hope it's alive.
Janet, find you somebody that's over 6 feet tall and has a beard and is not your ex-husband, and we'll talk.
I just want you to be happy.
All right. And again, thank y'all for sending in your questions. Anytime you have colorful questions, creative questions for us, we love to hear from you. We love to answer them on the show. So definitely send them over. You can shoot them over to us at theextraordinarynegroes@gmail.com. So thank you for doing that. And shall we get to this interview?
Let's do it.
All right, let's do it. Based out of Dallas, Texas, Ranier Maningding is the editor-at-large at NextShark, a TEDx speaker, and the driving force behind the social media sensation The Love Life of an Asian Guy, which delves into colorful explorations of racial inequality, politics, and pop culture. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, niggas with high-def televisions, and those poor unfortunate souls without, Ranier Maningding.
Hey guys.
Yo.
Welcome.
Yo. First and foremost, thanks for coming on. We're trying to be more inclusive, so congratulations on being our first affirmative action hire. But no, we're big fans. We're big fans of NextShark and everything else you got going on. So let's get right to it. We live in a day and age where racial tensions are arguably the highest they've been in recent memory. And 45's inauguration served to further fan those flames. So as someone who is as passionate about exploring the intersection of race and politics, how has your life changed since the sexual predator in chief took office?
Yeah, I think the weird thing that happened after the election, in particular with the Asian community, is that a lot of them, unfortunately, a lot of white people, they almost had this awakening where they're like, oh my God, racism is real. And so, I've been talking about race and politics for years.
Yeah.
But the community, the Asian community in particular, didn't really truly explode in terms of civil rights until Trump was elected. And so you have all these like young Asian Americans who have never really talked about race, who don't really know the full context of racism in America. And so they're entering this conversation. And so now it's almost like I've had to reteach old lessons that I've said hundreds of times, but I have to do it again for this newer generation who is just starting to get into it. And so it's this tricky thing where, I want to be able to bring all these new young Asian Americans up to speed, but I also don't want to baby them, especially as an Asian American, since there's few Asian Americans who are in this space, like talking about civil rights and whatnot, especially on a large scale.
Yeah.
A lot of them naturally just kind of look to me for answers, but sometimes even for me in this day and age, I don't even know what to say for myself. So.
Yeah, no, I mean, I can definitely understand that because like we have entered, and I mean, Alex and I have talked about this and that we've entered into a space where we've kind of grown into becoming like tastemakers, and we have like opinions that people like actively seek out, and we have nowhere near, the massive social media following that you have. You know what I'm saying? So, a lot of times we talk about stuff like, oh man, I don't know if we can say this or edit this out the show because it is going to sound crazy. So I can't imagine how it must feel to be like, to damn near feel like you are like the singular person who has that amount of responsibility and that scope. You know what I'm saying?
Oh yeah. And it's wild because I tell people that it's not all that it seems, like a lot of people are like, oh yeah, it'd be great to have a social media following like that, blah, blah, blah. And they see people like me as, somewhat of a online civil rights celebrity. And the unfortunate thing is, I never got into this thinking that I would be in this position. And so it's almost like a lot of folks kind of just nominated me, and I'm here just trying to figure shit out. And I'm like, okay, I guess if people are seeing me as this figure to look up to and someone whose opinions that they're waiting for, sometimes it's a lot of pressure because you want to be able to represent the Asian community properly, but you also have, a lot of complicated thoughts yourself. And so you're really teetering this line of, you know that you're either going to really just like inspire a shit ton of people, or you're going to piss off a lot of them. And so it sometimes can be, nerve inducing, just like thinking like, oh shit, like if I post this thing, if something happens, like it's going to blow the fuck up.
Yeah.
And so that's one of the things I've been sort of struggling with, is just like trying to break through that anxiety of like, okay, I don't want to say anything wrong or blah, blah, blah. And so sometimes you can get into this habit of just creating safe content. And I think for me, the important thing is to just always remind myself that like, as an Asian American, like we need more people who are incredibly vocal and opinionated and who don't mind pissing people off. And so it's tough. It's tough.
Yeah. I can imagine. So you mentioned kind of playing that position of this person in a, that people look to for answers, for explanations, or to break down these complex things. So when you're not doing that and, trying to find that balance of being everything to everyone or not, how do you take care of yourself? Like, what is your self-preservation regimen like?
That's one of the things I've been struggling with a lot recently, because, especially on social media, it's like, there's always something to talk about. There's always an article to share. And so I'm really on the clock 24/7. If someone's tagging me something, in the middle of the night and it's blowing up, folks are just like, they need answers and they need me to say something. And then they get mad if I don't say something. And so I've been trying to really just figure out like, okay, I need to like carve out some time for myself, because sometimes shit happens in the news and you're like, I don't even know how to feel about this. And it's not even like I'm waiting because I'm going to say something fucked up and I don't want to get shit for it. It's just, I'm trying to comprehend it, like if people are getting shot, like I need some time to kind of like mellow out from this, really depressing shit. And so sometimes it feels like when you're in this position, you are supposed to be the first one to react, the first one to say something, and you have to say the best thing possible to like make sense of it all. But sometimes I'm just like, I don't, I have no idea how to do it. So I've been trying to like step away, and I've had to be really meticulous about the way that I self-care and make myself feel better, because a lot of people are like, hey, if you're on social media too much, just take a break. But it's not how it works for me. People who are making content, we have to be on. Like that's our job.
Yeah.
And people don't realize you can't take a break. Like you really can't take a break, because if you take that break, then the followers and the people who are engaging on your content, like these slowly start to slip away. And so it's just, especially people whose livelihood, whose careers depend on this shit, it's tough. So I need to like, I have to get into like deep relaxation. So I have to have like intense 4-hour periods where I'm just playing Call of Duty, or I just get super baked and I just listen to music and I just like turn off my phone. So whatever I can do to just almost forget the fact that social media exists and just do something completely basic, just, walk around or, bake a pie or some shit, just something so disconnected from social media. So that way I can just, chill out.
That's essential now, especially because now there's always something to be mad about, always something to react to. So I know it's probably more important now than ever to have that time for yourself.
Oh, yeah. And I think that because these discussions of race and politics, from a content perspective and a publisher's perspective, they make a lot of money. Like a lot of journalists know that talking about Trump and talking about racism is big business. Yeah. And so it really highlights the fact that you can pick any story. You can find a one-of-a-kind story that is happening right now or this hour, and you can pitch it as being the most important thing that's going on in America right now. Like there's just so much shit happening, It's not even from, things that are being shared by CNN, but like someone will tag you in something. It's like, hey man, my friend was at this restaurant and this person was being racist, blah, blah, blah. Like it's everywhere, it's everywhere. So it's like, yeah, like you said, you can find an endless supply of shit to be upset about. And so sometimes like when you're in this space talking about racism, you get into this like emotional schedule of always being pissed off or always being upset.
Ooh.
And like your mind starts to get accustomed to feeling that way. You start to get used to being upset. You start getting used to being that irritated. And I think for me, one day I just realized like, holy shit, like this is really fucking up my own mental health. This is making me legitimately depressed. So
Yeah.
it's tough.
Yes. More Call of Duty and sex, please. You know, you got to take care of yourself.
Yes.
Now, I'm not sure if you're familiar with Professor Claire Jean Kim's racial triangulation theory, but it breaks down how Asian Americans have been racialized into assuming the mantle of quote unquote model minorities in comparison to us lazy ass good for nothing niggas. So, you know, in turn, that reinforces white supremacy and has contributed to dissension between our communities for decades now. So looking at all this and taking into account, how has your relationship with the Black community evolved over the course of your life?
The interesting thing is that I grew up in the Bay Area, so it was a bubble of diversity that didn't really reflect the way the rest of the United States worked. You know, I was in a neighborhood that was 40% Asian and 40% Latino, and I think we had like, you know, what is it, like less than 10% white. So we had this sense of diversity growing up, but there was also a very, very small Black community, even less than the white community in the neighborhood.
Yeah.
And so growing up, my relationship with the Black community was heavily based off of what I could experience in entertainment and music. And so there was always these weird perceptions of what Black people were like for a lot of people in my neighborhood. You know, you had a lot of Asian people who, you know, back during, what was it, like 2004, 2005, where they thought that all Black people were like Lil Jon and Usher, you know? And so like you had this really narrow, super narrow perspective of what Black folks are like. And it is only until a lot of us moved out of that bubble that we realize like what it's really like. You know, that's why I think places like the Bay Area or Southern California, where there are a ton of Asian people who can kind of just like live amongst other Asians, that's why a lot of them got hit hardest with Trump, because they just didn't see any of this shit coming. They were in a neighborhood where they didn't have to really give a shit, you know, because there weren't even enough white people. And for me, I started to be more aware of what was going on when I started to blog. And I was writing and blogging as early as like 2007, 2005. And so I talked about interracial relationships. And one of the main things I talked about were Asian men and Black women communities, because you really didn't see that going on. And there was a thriving community on Facebook. And so that was probably my first moment of really like joining a community of different intellectuals who were talking about racism from the Black community's perspective. You know, because before I had only really listened to Asian people. And I think for me, it has just been a learning experience of trying to figure out like what racism is like for Black folks. Because I've always thought about what it means to be Asian. I've always thought about my Asian identity, but I've never really had to think about what it was like for Black folks.
Yeah.
And so for me, it's just a continual process of adding to the layers and understanding like, okay, like, so now I've understood what is, to the best of my ability, police brutality. And then I understand about what it means to be a member of the LGBT community and you're Black, what it means to be an artist who is Black, you know, Black students who are in STEM. So I take an approach where I see myself more in line with the way that Asian American activists of the 60s were, where they looked at Black communities and the way that they structured and modeled their communities as sort of the standard of how you get shit done. Socially and politically. And so I observe a lot of the ways that Black communities organize and talk to each other. And I think that as someone in the civil rights space, like you can just learn so much and you can just understand a lot about the way that politics work and, you know, economies work based off of your understanding of how Black folks are treated and how Black communities work together.
Great point. Now, also generally speaking, do you feel, you know, as someone, a big representative in your community, do you feel the term intersectionality has been inclusive to Asian communities? I know we're seeing an increase in it now, but in kind of a broadening of what that entails. But how do you view that now?
I'm half and half on it. I think it definitely has, you know, this preaching of, you know, being more intersectional and making your communities and spaces more intersectional. I definitely think it has opened up people towards Asian opinions. One of the hardest things that Asian people have to overcome if they want to join any conversation in America is to prove that you are an American. And I think xenophobia is such a huge issue. And a lot of discussions leave out Asian people simply because we just don't think that they're American. A lot of times people just assume that we are foreigners. So it's hard because I see all the time like these lists where they're like, oh yeah, we talked to a diverse group of people and we asked them questions about racism, blah, blah, blah. And I always see these things where they're like supposedly talking to people of different races, but they never talk to Asian people,
Yeah.
And I know that it has improved, but even then, like the Asian people that they do pick, it's easy for them to cherry pick the same type of Asians, like this type of Asians who are just as rich as white people, or the ones who are just as elitist and racist as white people. And a lot of people don't understand just how split the Asian community is just between East Asians and Southeast Asians. Like I hear plenty of, stories from people who are Chinese or Japanese or Korean, but I rarely hear things from people who are Cambodian, people who are getting deported like right now, people who are refugees of the Vietnam War, like these people who we really kind of push to the side because they don't look like what we think Asian people look like. They don't talk to the darker skinned Asian people. They don't talk to the ones who are impoverished and homeless. Instead, they talk to the Jeremy Lins. Instead, they talk to the Asian people who are
affluent.
Yeah, exactly. Who are affluent.
Yeah.
And it's unfortunate because we're going to be, in 20 years, we're going to be praising how great the Asian community has succeeded in the last few years, but we're going to have a whole section of Asian identity that we didn't even explore.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's a great point though, because it's just a matter of like, America is slowly coming to, I wouldn't even say understanding, but there's this white guilt thing going on where they feel like anything that's labeled diverse automatically becomes diverse because it has a Black person or women. You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah.
And it's like diversity is way wider than that. And to your point earlier, I think Alex can probably relate too, is that like I'm coming, as I become more and more cognizant of what's going on in this world, I'm in a similar space that you are, as far as how you've said that you've taken the time to kind of understand Black plight. I'm in the same space you are as far as understanding, well, what does it mean to be Asian in America? What does it mean to be Hispanic? What does it mean to be Indigenous? What does it mean to be Middle Eastern? What does it mean to be a woman, LGBTQ? You know what I mean? Like I'm really trying to invest the time because I really feel like I in having this platform and having some of the aspirations that I have, with this platform and even outside of it, like I really want to make sure that allyship is something that I can take pride in. I don't want to just be performative with, what it is that I want to do. You know what I mean? I really want to have a deeper understanding of what it is. So to that point, what changes do you feel that the Black and Asian communities need to take in order to become stronger allies in order to uproot white supremacy?
When you're talking about like racial dynamics between different ethnic communities, I think it doesn't get more complicated and confusing than the relationship between Black communities and Asian communities, because you have, historically speaking, you have this tapering off of a relationship where you have Chinese immigrants who come in the 1800s and, they're working alongside Black Americans who are, working on railroads or in the mines or in canning companies or out in farms. And so there's this history of working together, and it goes deeper than just working on the mines. You're talking about Filipino men, young men who were prohibited from entering the job market. So they had to take quote unquote feminine careers. So they were doing laundry, they were babysitters, and they were working alongside, again, other Black workers. Move on to, the 60s in the civil rights movement and a lot of Asian people who were supporting the Black Panther movement. But then by the 80s and 90s, that's when shit kind of fell off. And so you're looking at this relationship like, hey, this thing could have been great. This relationship could have been formed. We could have made this connection based off of our shared encounters. And I think one of the first things that needs to happen is more Asian people need to recognize that point in history where we fucked up, which is around when that Korean shop owner killed that young Natasha Harlins in LA, which spurred off the LA uprising. And so things like that, I feel, especially when I've talked to a lot of older Black folks and they talk about the Asian community and they have such vivid memories about what it felt like to be sort of thrown under the bus by Asian people like that, where, they just wanted an apology. They wanted an explanation for why this thing happened. A lot of Asian people sort of deflected it. And I think that's step one. I think step one is for Asian people to understand what they have done and the fact that a lot of them here, their existence in the United States was heavily impacted by the groundwork and foundation laid by Black civil rights leaders.
Mm.
And as Asian Americans, especially Asian American immigrants who are always trying to look forward, always trying to see ahead, trying to better themselves, I think it's so important for them to also look back and realize, like, hey, we are here for a reason. Like, we got our ticket here because someone else helped us out. And
Yeah.
as far as what the Black community needs to do for Asian people, I really don't think that there's anything that they need to do. I mean, I think it's more just everybody needs to learn like what anti-Asian racism is, or that, you know, these jokes are bad, or you shouldn't make them, or that you shouldn't say the word Oriental. And that's more just sort of a general thing that everyone needs to do. But I don't really think that Black folks in particular have to make the first move. I think Asian people need to make that first move. I think Asian people need to make that first step and put themselves out there and be like, hey, you know what? You guys helped us out all these years. We're going to go ahead and step in. And luckily, I've been a research that came out that said that more and more Black, Asian, and Latino millennials are moving closer and closer to each other in terms of where they lie on their opinions of politics. And they're moving further and further away from white people. So I think it might be interesting to see how this all plays out.
Mm.
That's a really interesting point, because I'm always curious. You know, you see a lot of Asian businesses, certain types, of course, in Black communities. So I was always wondering, like, what are the steps that we could do to kind of foster some of that greater that closeness, just because, you know, they have been a part of each other's communities for, you know, decades at this point, whether it's, you know, laundromats or, you know, beauty supply stores, or the types of businesses that, you know, Black communities rely on. So there has to be some kind of way. And even if it's, I don't know, I'm sure that those changes just come from greater comfort with one another, but some way to kind of foster, like, just somebody taking that first step. Like, you know, we live together, we work together, our kids are growing up together. There has to be a way to kind of mount up against the, you know, awful white folks.
Yeah. And like the thing that it's sort of like this, you know, fantasy project that I have in mind. But one of the things I would love to do is to hit up the Asian businesses that are in Black neighborhoods that have been really causing a lot of rift, especially like beauty supply stores that have in recent years have been, you know, getting in the news because they're, you know, these Asian owners are like beating up Black customers, or they're chasing them around or doing some shit, you know. And I would love to work with a group of people who'd be interested in connecting with these businesses and connecting with other Black organizations to sort of try to build some better understanding, and to let these business owners know that, like, hey, you're in a Black neighborhood. Like, you should be treating your customers with respect. Like, you guys are selling Black only products. It's not like Asian people are shopping here. So you know who your customers are. And yet your customers are the people that you're following around and that you're harassing. Like, it doesn't make sense. Like, you would never see a business, a tech startup company, alienate the people that they're trying to serve. Like, it just doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, it doesn't. Not at all. It doesn't. It has to be a baby. I don't know if it's just, you know, like you said, kind of starting that one at a time, you know, kind of starting conversations, you know, one person at a time. But yeah, there definitely has to be a way. It just doesn't seem sustainable, these communities being in these businesses being in these communities for so long, and having such hostile relationships. It doesn't seem like it can't last. Especially
because the nature of those relationships have been so symbiotic.
Yeah. I've heard plenty of stories, you know, from people who are in these communities, and they say, you know what, most of these Asian businesses, you know, discriminate against me, but there have been some that they really do connect with the community. Like, they do events with the kids, they do community outreach, and they're really sort of involved in that community. And it's such a difficult issue, because then you're also talking about, well, what about Asian businesses who don't have proper English skills, and how that could lead to, you know, different interpretations of hostility, and factoring in what a lot of these Asian immigrants perceive Black people to be like versus what they're actually like. And so I think a lot of it has to do with younger Asian communities stepping in and educating the older ones, or the newly immigrated ones, and telling them, hey, like, this is what's up. Like, this is what's going on. This is the state of the nation, socially, politically, racially, and, you know, just get your shit together.
Y'all got to stop watching so much VH1, yo. That's what it sounds like.
It's hard because I almost see it like trying to patch up a leaky pipe with multiple like holes in it. you have this steady stream of Asian American immigrants who are always coming into the country every year, which I'm not trying to say that's a bad thing at all. But what I am saying is that a lot of them come in with zero education about American history, especially relationships between Black and Asian people, or even just anti-Black racism. And so a lot of them are coming in with just the worst, most rudimentary understanding of Black people. And they're coming from these, cultures that have blackface on daytime TV shows. And so like someone like me, like I can educate Asian Americans as much as I want, but I almost wonder like how fruitless of a battle is it? Like I can educate this generation, but there's going to be another generation next year who just came to the country and they don't know shit about race. And so now I have to go ahead and educate those ones.
It never ends.
So it never ends. And that's what's really difficult about the Asian community is that I have to address like all tentacles and all different heads of this hydra. I have to address racist Asian Americans and racist Asian immigrants and racist Asian people who are living in their homeland. So it's just, it's stressful.
I know that's like a weight. I'm sure that is a weight actually feeling, being in that position and feeling some type of obligation to, current and future generations. You said that, like, how do you kind of manage that? I mean, is that something that is like a coalition type of thing that needs to happen? Like, one person, can't, because obviously at some point you're going to have to go back to the source. I mean, these people are learning and learning about this culture from somewhere. I mean, it's not something that they're just kind of inventing themselves. So, I mean, is that something that, is that in itself sustainable? I mean, is that something where you're, kind of need to bring on some cohorts to kind of help further this message, or like, one person kind of trying to change the mind of, or change the course of, race relations? Like, how is that sustainable, or how does they do that?
Yeah, I mean, even Jesus had disciples. You know what I'm saying?
and that's the thing that's really hard is that like I sometimes will put it on myself to try and like eradicate certain forms of bigotry among the Asian community, even though I know that I can't do that and I shouldn't even expect myself to do that. But from my perspective, like after engaging with so many different types of Asians all around the world, like you realize that like, holy shit, this is such a huge problem with just, more and more Asian people getting super conservative and super fucking racist. And, they're buying into this whole edgy alt-right culture and they get sucked into it. They get pulled into it. And I think for me, I had to just understand that like there's only so much that I am able to do. And I have to keep in mind that the greater Asian community needs to be able to step up. I shouldn't have to be like watching out and, playing yard duty, telling people to like stop doing shit. And I think it just, for me, I see it as like a source of frustration, like more people need to step up. But I also see it as an exciting opportunity where I'm like, hey, I can't wait till this next great Asian American civil rights leader to come up, from nothing, or someone to come in from the Philippines and just be like all for Black Lives Matter, So I'm excited because there is that opportunity where a lot of people have a vacant mantle where they could be taking up these issues. And so, I'm starting to see it spread more. I'm starting to see more people like from Thailand or from parts of Japan, and they're standing with Asian Americans who are standing with the Black community. So it's kind of cool, like seeing the progress, but I just need to make sure that I can only manage so much, and that the best thing that you can do is to really just care for your community, the people that you write for, the people that you create content for. And that is the best thing you can do, just to focus on them. And, if your work shines, then it'll speak for itself and it'll reverberate.
It's a great point. It's a really good point. Now, you've had a lot to say on your platform about Hollywood's favorite pastime, which is whitewashing.
Mm-hmm.
And since there are so few examples of authentic, kind of unbastardized, examples of authentic Asian representation in American media, how, if at all, has this shaped your identity or how you identify as a Filipino American, or maybe affected the media that you seek out?
It's really hard because the way I don't look quote unquote Filipino to a lot of Filipino people. Like a lot of times Filipino people don't realize I'm Filipino, but then a lot of East Asian folks don't think that I look like them. And so I've always had to really like grow up and create like makeshift representation. Like I have to look at people who are Japanese or Chinese and sort of like, oh, I can kind of see myself, even though they're like super pale or whatever, like I can kind of envision myself doing that, So it was always weird just trying to really stretch whatever little representation and try to milk whatever I can out of it. Before, when I was in high school, the best form of representation that I had was Harold and Kumar. And that was like that was like the best thing ever, And Harold from Harold and Kumar, he was like a stoner and he was an awkward guy, but he felt real. He seemed relatable, and I was like, I could identify with that. But it's interesting now because, especially with discussions of whitewashing and representation and championing more people of color to direct and shoot and cast their own projects, you're starting to see more Asian people on the big screen. And so it's really cool. I love the fact that I do have certain shows that if I wanted to see positive representation of Asian people or Asian men, I can go ahead and turn that on. I could watch old episodes of The Walking Dead before the oft Glenn. And so I'm just hoping that Hollywood and different production companies, they don't stick to just focusing on the same type of Asian people. I hope they include representation for trans Asian people and Asian Muslims and dark-skinned Asians and people who aren't Chinese or Japanese, and I want to see more stories about Asian stoners and Asian politicians. And so for me now it's about like, okay, now we got our foot in the door. Now it's about rounding out that image. Now it's about telling all these different complex stories. So that way we're not talking about the same, oh, haha, like Asian, we're immigrants and we're so funny, blah, 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 blah. Like, oh, like smart Asian people. Like I love the show fresh off the boat, but I think that we could do more,
Yeah. I'm sure it's a journey, just like how long it took for us to get representations on TV that don't make us look like the scum of the earth 24/7. I can just that hunt for identifying like faces and stories that look and sound like yours.
I think one of the biggest things that, kind of like to Alex's point is that like me personally, I'm at a point like growing up, I never really paid attention to race when I was watching TV just because I just accepted white as the default. But as I grew up and matured and had a better understanding of how like media plays into how people are, perceived and everything else, and as well as wanting to see myself and my friends and my family represented in the characters that I consumed on television and film, I had more of a desire to seek out representation. So now I'm at a point where like, if I watch a show and within like the first like 2-3 minutes, I don't see a black face, I'm automatically like mentally checked out. So I guess one of the things for me is that like, one of the things I wonder is that like, it's such a struggle for us to find that. I can't imagine what it must be like to be an Asian person. You know what I mean? Because it's like, we're just happy just to see one black person on a show. And there's a pretty good chance that any show you watch is going to have at least one. But it's like, as far as like, being a member of the Asian community, you might go weeks without not seeing somebody that looks like you. So how does that influence how you're able to consume or even enjoy this stuff?
Yeah, I was laughing when you're saying about how you kind of like mentally check out if you don't see any black people. I'm the same way with Asian people, and when it comes to representation of people of color in any type of media I consume. Like if I'm watching a movie and I'm like, okay, there's just a bunch of white frat dudes, like I'm gonna turn this off. I'm gonna watch a different Netflix movie. So I check out too. And I'm very critical now. I'm like, now it's kind of like the luxury to, before it was like, okay, I just want to see like an Asian face, or I just want to see someone who looks like me. And sometimes before in more desperate times, you just wanted the representation. You weren't as picky about like how they represented them. It was more just like, okay, yeah, we exist, we made a cameo. Before I was like, oh shit, there's an Asian person in a Sprint commercial, and I'd get super excited, but now it's just kind of a whatever thing. But I'm more critical about it, and I'm like, okay, well, the representation's great. I'm glad that we're in this commercial, but like, how are they representing us? Is this positive imagery? What is this saying about us? How are we being portrayed in relation to the white characters? But then it's also led to me thinking like, now that a lot of people of color are getting that representation, like I'm starting to see sometimes, we're shooting ourselves in the foot, where there are instances where like, hey, it's not perfect, but like we're just super, super overly critical that like it's almost like nothing is good enough for us sometimes,
Mm-hmm.
And that's that's what's really tough. Like there have been cases where like an Asian person would get a role for a movie, right? It's like an anime movie, like an anime adaptation.
Yeah.
People will flip out if like the actor isn't Japanese, you know?
Yeah.
Or the actor's like Korean or something like that. And a lot of Asian people like are super up in arms. And like I get why they're making that argument, but then at the same time I'm like, okay, like are we just setting ourselves to always just be upset?
Yeah.
And so I've been trying to like think about it. Like I've just been really trying to analyze like what representation are we going to be okay with, and what should we tolerate and what shouldn't we tolerate?
Yeah.
You really can't please everybody in that regard. Like there's always going to be some intersection that, there could have been, it's an Asian character or it's a black character or a Latina character. It could have been more this, more smart, more money, more respectable, more, there's all, but yeah, it is, I'm sure it is like both frustrating and maybe a little encouraging.
All I know is they better not fuck up Crazy Rich Asians, because I'm definitely looking forward to see that.
Yeah, me too. It's supposed I mean, like a lot, I was talking to my, to everyone at work, at NextShark, we're talking about it, and I was saying how, if Crazy Rich Asians does well, I mean, this could be a game changer for Asian Americans. I was like, this could be like, if it's smooth and it's slick, if it's like the Asian version of Ocean's 11 or whatever, like it just has some smooth shit and it shows a side of Asian people that a lot of us aren't used to seeing. This could change the tide of so many future Asian products, so many different movies that, might have overlooked Asian actors, but now that they've seen the main guy, Henry Golding, and now that they've seen Constance Wu, and they're like, oh shit, like they're pretty cool. Like I could see them doing this role in a James Bond movie or blah, blah, blah. So I'm hoping it does well. It seems like it's one of the biggest all Asian cast productions done in America. So this has like huge implications, because I know that, white executives are watching and they're like, okay, if this shit sucks, then we're going to hold this against Asian people for the next 50 years and be like, hey, well, about that time that you did Crazy Rich Asians, remember how much money you put in that shit? Yeah. Like, so it's a lot of pressure, but I think they'll do it.
Yeah, I mean, just like the degree of detail that they've gone to as far as like this international casting, and then even hearing this, I forgot the name of the director, but even hearing his story and how like Netflix offered him like a ridiculous amount of money to do it, and it was way more than any other studio offered, and he still turned it down in favor of Warner Brothers, because he really wanted to do something that was more meaningful to the Asian community as a whole, as far as moving the community forward and putting them on the big screen. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
I would have took the money. You know what I'm saying? But what he did was definitely noble.
No, exactly. Like, and I think that from a strategic perspective, in terms of like elevating Asian representation, I mean, that's a very noble thing. Like you said, I would not pass up, an offer for millions and millions of dollars to go on Netflix. But I think like from a social, like, uplifting our community perspective, like that's awesome. But I'm like, damn, I wish I would be that good of a person.
Yes, because I'm not. Now, I've seen Sean King touch on the subject numerous times, but does the nature and, the popularity of your platform, because you have like hundreds of thousands of people that with a reach of like in the millions, but, does the nature and popularity of your platform ever require you to take safety precautions when you're in public?
I'm definitely not at the Sean King level where like I'm that recognizable, so I don't have to worry about it that much, at least at the level that he does, I'm sure. And I know that I think he lives in the city somewhere, so like he's always walking around, people see him. I live in the suburbs, so no one fucking sees me unless I'm like in Walmart in my, PJs. But I mean, I've definitely had my share of like death threats and really questionable messages where I'm like, I don't know if I want to do this. And especially when I started doing college tours and I was going around different campuses and talking to students, I was always in the back of my mind, like, hey, I'm putting out an address, I'm putting out a time. Like if, all these people that I've been like, all these racists that I've gotten fired and all these people who I've, fucked with, if they wanted to, they might come.
They can get your ass. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And so it's just like, I guess you just have to, throw caution in the wind and be like, fuck it, I'll do this thing. But on a day-to-day basis, I don't worry about it.
And see, the flip side of that is like, we've had like white people come to us and try to expose other racist white people and be like, hey, you guys have this platform. Why don't you take on this emotional labor and check these white folks? And we're just like, what the fuck? That is not our ministry. Like, what is wrong? You know what I'm saying? So I'm sure you've been put in that position too.
Oh yeah, plenty of times. And I think that's hard when you get to this position. People rely on you and they use you as sort of a megaphone. Because a lot of times, like, you know that you can do it. You know that you have the reach to make some impact or get this person fired or expose them or whatever. But sometimes it's like the requests are just there's so many of them.
Yeah.
That it becomes like, shit, like, can I, like at what point am I just sharing all this shit that people want me to share? You know, like, at what point can I just focus on my own content, you know, focus on what I want to talk about?
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's hard.
They want you to be a detective agency.
Oh, totally. And I have to tell people, I have to remind people that as your platform grows, your ability to do that diminishes,
right?
Simply because you become a bigger threat in terms of some sort of legal action. You know, people will be like, oh, well, look at this huge page. They called me out. Like, you know, this is slander. This is defamation.
Yeah.
And so they look at you as a business, and it's easier for them and their lawyers to be like, okay, I can make a case out of this, blah, blah, blah. So it's tricky. And I've had to scale back on who I drag and who I expose, because if I get my shit wrong, that could be,
it's a wrap.
Fucking fast. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it really can be catastrophic. Now, a lot of us out here in these social media spaces, we do feed off of that negativity and that hatred. So do you pay any mind to what your detractors say or some of the wild shit that people bring your way? Or do you take any of it to mind? Do you just kind of brush it off and say, you know, eat a dick, fuck you? Or how do you handle?
I mean, I'd totally be lying if I said that. Like, I can ignore it and I don't have to pay attention to it. For the most part, yeah, I kind of do. I kind of just ignore it. But you know, there's always just that one comment that kind of gets under your skin. You're like, what the fuck? Like, well, why would you say that? You have no idea what this page is about or what we've done here, blah, blah, blah. And I think those are the ones that get to me. Maybe because there's truth in it. Maybe it's because I feel guilty about something and I know that they're right. You know, but at the same time, like, especially when you're in the social activism space where everybody has like a critique of you and everyone wants to like analyze every little thing. I think if you come at it from this, oh, everything is constructive criticism perspective, then you're just going to go fucking like wild. Like, you're just going to be reading all this shit and like, you know, you're going to feel really insecure about the content that you create because you'll be like, oh man, like maybe I am full of shit or maybe I am this and that. But, you know, I think it's just learning to weigh out. Like, I think if more people are saying that you're full of shit than people who are saying that you're great, then I think that's when you have a problem.
Woosah.
Yeah.
Now, as I begin to wrap this up a little bit, I'm going to play a little game of word association with you, Mr. Ranier. Cool. So try to keep your answers short, so that way we power through these real quick. Your first one, let's do Iron Fist.
Whitewashed.
What about Next Shark?
Leading.
And the last one, you might want to elaborate on this one a little bit, but George Tekai.
Oh man. Gosh. I would just say disappointed. I think if I were to elaborate on it, you know, I posted recently about how I was really upset about the whole George Tekai thing. People are like, why? Like, what, you know, why do you have this connection with him? Blah, 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 blah. And I had to remind everyone that, you know, being an Asian American, you know, public figure who talks about civil rights and who pursues this as a career and this is your platform, it's a very lonely space. You know, there aren't too many people who are in this position. There aren't too many people who you can talk to. And when you're going through shit, there aren't too many Asian people who you can be like, hey, you know, how did you deal with this? Like, you kind of add this alone. And obviously George is like his career was way too big for me to ever like reach out to him. But I guess I always saw him as like, wow, you know, you can be Asian and you can be successful and you can talk about really noble, awesome shit and not be a doctor and not be a nurse. And, you know, you can do this. And so I always kind of like held him in that regard of like, hey, you know, that's my cool grandpa that I want to be like. And even though like I don't like really pay attention to him like too much his personal life. And even though he has said some like really questionable shit, I guess I always said, well, at the very end, like I do respect at least what he has done for certain communities.
Yeah.
But then all this shit now, it's like, well, does that reframe everything? Does that change like how I feel about the things that he has accomplishment? Does that make the things that all the shitty things that he's done, does that make it even worse? And so now it's just a matter of like really analyzing, like, how do I feel about him? You know, like how does this impact his legacy? How does this impact the work that he's done? It's wild, but you know, especially in the position that I'm in, since I work with Nexshark and we're a publication, it's hard to say things definitively because all the allegations against George Tekai have been allegations. And so as much as I want to say like, oh, fuck George Tekai, blah, 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 again, like I said before, there are also legal implications if I say the wrong thing, you know? Like if I say something, they might be like, oh shit, Netflix or Nexshark said this one thing, blah, 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 like we need to go after him, that writer, blah, blah, blah. Like I don't have the fucking money to go fight against George Tekai. So
Yeah.
it's hard, you know?
Yeah. I think the quote is, I don't know whose quote it was, but I think the quote was, all your faves are problematic.
Yep.
Yep.
That's facts.
Yeah.
That's fact.
Yep. It's true.
Yeah. It's like at some point, either they're going to expose themselves or someone's going to come out and say something about them. So I'm like, after George Tekai, I'm like, fucking everyone is the worst, and I'm expecting the worst from everybody.
Yo, I heard Oprah eats McRib. So I mean, when I heard that, it was a wrap for me.
We all fall down. We're all imperfect. What can we expect coming up from you in the future?
You know, I'm doing a lot of work with Nexshark to change the way that we approach Asian American journalism. And I definitely want to branch out and do more like full projects. So right now I'm sort of working on my personal art, like, you know, photography and whatnot, but I'm just trying to do shit that's different. You know, I think especially now where everybody's writing think pieces and everyone has something to say, and, you know, this woke analysis about the fucking McRib or Panda Express, like sometimes I feel like this sort of market is just so saturated and everyone is talking about it. And so it's really difficult to like cut through the clutter and say something that is truly original and something that is truly different. And so I'm spending every night just thinking about all these different stories from Asian people and different people of color who we haven't really been looking at. And so I'm just trying to, I'm just working with Nexshark and see if we can come up with the next big idea.
Awesome. Well, I want to thank you for stopping by to share your brilliance and your insights with us on today. We have now come to the part of the show that we call Extraordinary Negroes of the Week, where we give some shine to someone who's doing something great or terrible that needs a little bit more shine and special attention. We can either let you go first, or I can have Jay go first if you need a little bit more time to think of your honoree.
No, I'll go first. I'll let him marinate on his answer.
Okay.
I have two.
Of course you do.
Hopefully one of them's yours. The first one I have is Mr. Miguel Pilgrim. Miguel Pilgrim. Dude is doing some supremely dope shit that I'm going to tell y'all all about. He won the lottery a few years ago, but instead of fucking off all his money on do-rags and chicken nuggets, he launched his own real estate company. And now, through his real estate company, he's reviving a historically black community in downtown Fort Lauderdale that's named after a gentleman by the name of James Sistruck, who was a black physician who helped establish the first African-American hospital there in the 30s. So I think what's great about this is not only the fact that he's, empowering himself and his community, but he's specifically doing this to preserve the community's cultural identity instead of allowing it to be picked apart by gentrifiers. So that's super dope. So shout out to Miguel for what he's doing out there. I see you, player. For my second pick, I want to
Come on.
Chill. Hold on, player. For my second pick, I want to show some love to Miss Tiffany Haddish, who just became maybe I need to have another one because you sound relieved. Who just became the first black female comic to host Saturday Night Live. I didn't know people still watch that shit, but apparently they do. But regardless, it's a tremendous feat and very much deserved. And as happy as I am for her catapulting into becoming a household name this year, I'm still deeply dismayed that the days of catching her around LA doing all those free shows are officially over. I'm really upset about that. But shout out to her and Miguel, because each of them are doing big things. And because I'm petty, I really hope Ranier says yours. That's all I got to say.
Are you ready, or do you need another moment? Would you like me to go?
I'll have you go and I'll go after.
Okay. So this week I had the pleasure of seeing my first, or my only Extraordinary Negro of the Week, and live and in person. And she's someone whose work I've admired on small screen and large screen for quite some time. I was fortunate enough to go and see Miss Jennifer Lewis, stage and screen veteran, speak about her upcoming, or her memoir that just got released. I think it was Tuesday, and speak about her.
That.
You should be, because it was fucking amazing. You should be jealous. Yeah, she talked about her, told stories. I love her because, people of a certain age, older generations, they definitely love to play up this whole, I've never made any mistakes. I've never done anything wrong. My life's always been perfect. I always make good decisions, and, I've never done any bad things. And so the fact that she's writing and speaking openly about dealing with sex addiction, and she's naming names and talking about threesomes and sucking this person and fucking that person, and, dealing with being bipolar and how she got through it, and just struggling and working and being a professional person out in the world, like while she was sick and dealing and trying to make the most of her life. Like, I just love her transparency with that. And then she's also hilarious, and just to see her be as amazing and hilarious as she is on Blackish and in Jackie's Back and everything else we've seen.
Word.
It was a pleasure. So shout out to Jennifer Lewis, my Extraordinary Negro of the week.
Jennifer, yes, thank you for inviting us. But next time when you want to invite the both of us, make sure that it's in LA. That way Alex can't go and I can. I would appreciate that.
I doubt it. Don't be mad.
But no, I definitely was hating. I'm not even gonna lie. I was hating when we got that invite.
And Ranier, sir?
Yeah, so I would say, one of the things I follow a lot is actually UFC and MMA. And one of the issues that I've been really sort of trying to stay in tune with that I don't think that gets a lot of coverage is one of their champions. His name is Tyron Woodley. He is one of the only, if not the only UFC fighter, especially a champion, no less, who's talked about racism in the company, who's called out racism within the UFC. And he has said many times that he's felt that his treatment within the company, he'd been targeted for racism, and, the way that they promote him, the way that they make him look like he's, an enemy. And he's incredibly vocal about these social issues, just like the sweetest, nicest guy. And one of the people who's like calling him out to go fight is like a fucking racist. He's always, it's all like dog whistling, telling him, calling Tyron Woodley, pulling out the victim card, and exactly what he's talking about. He's alluding to the fact that Tyron Woodley talks about racism. He talks about anti-Black racism, and he's just like this only guy in this whole industry talking about this stuff. And I'm just hoping that more people recognize that, although he doesn't have the scope as Colin Kaepernick, I think that what he's doing is very revolutionary, and not a lot of people are watching what he's talking about.
Shout out to all of our Extraordinary Negroes of the Week for all the wonderful things that you do, even Jay's, since he likes to take two every time, but it's okay.
It's not my fault there's not two Jennifer Lewises. What the fuck you want me to do?
I know. So, Ranier, thank you for, again, like I said, coming through, talked about what you have coming up here. Where can people find you on these interwebs and social media?
So you can go ahead. You can find me primarily on my Facebook page. So it's The Love Life of an Asian Guy, facebook.com/TheLLAG, or you can find me on Neckshark. I'm the editor at large, so I write a lot about race, and I actually run their civil rights vertical on Facebook, which is called Rebel Yellow.
Rebel Yellow. Shout out to Neckshark. So yes, thank you everyone for listening in. Be sure to subscribe to us on TuneIn. You can hear all new episodes a week ahead of time on TuneIn app. Also on iTunes. Be sure to leave us that wonderful 5-star review. Let people know about this wonderful podcast that you're listening to and how much better their lives will be if they also listen to it. Be sure to hit us up on theextraordinarynegros.com. Drop us a review, share it with your friends, follow us on Facebook at The Extraordinary Negroes, Twitter at The Extra Negroes, same for Instagram, and don't look for us on Snapchat because we are too old for that. In the meantime, it's ridiculous and it's never going to happen, so stop asking. In the meantime, tell a friend or 50, be sure to take care of yourself. apologize to someone, eat a good meal, do what you need to do, masturbate appropriately. And peace out.
Peace out, y'all.